Do you believe you've lived a good life? Maran stands frozen, hands forming a defense around their neck. Their eyes wide with fear, they stare in complete shock. The man claiming to claim their head has faded. Instead, in his place, stands the small piano Maran played as a child. Maran slowly begins to look around, dropping their hands from their fortified position. The soft, warm breeze slowly grazes along their clothing and etches their figure against the sudden setting sun. For only a moment ago, Maran stood defending their ground against the band of devils, those who opposed the truths Maran utters. What was once a collapsing town of smoking plume transformed into the soft spring hills that they were raised in, and in this moment, Maran takes in what was once forgotten to them. Do you believe you've lived a good life? The troubled voice calls once more. Maran turns their gaze to the figure beside them. Their harsh yellow eyes are greeted with a pair much softer than their own, akin to lamb's wool. A look of sorrow and fatigue lay blanketed on the figure's face as they peer into Maran. While the face of a stranger may normally spring Maran into action, leading the mouths of many to incinerate those who lay before them, Maran cannot bring themselves to do so. It is as if the weight of their empty soul anchors them in place, unable to evoke action, unable to move. It's been quite some time since we've last spoken to one another, the figure says. Come, sit with me a while. Let's catch up. Before Maran can issue a reply, they are whisked by the wrist to the stool of the small piano. Clammy and cramped this piano was, a worn piece of work that they had scrounged together themselves. Maran, still shocked at the sight of this all, stares tiredly at the wickered keys. Their slender, torn fingers gently rest atop the faded and chipped eggshell keys. They sit and stare for quite some time, while they tense their muscles, pleading and gesturing and begging and trying to find the familiar motions. They cannot play this tainted memory. They choke back tears with raspy and deflated gasps, attempting to mask their frustration. They finally look up to meet the figure that sits atop the piano, to which the face of the empty stares back, again, with a gaze of sorrow and fatigue. The pair stare for quite some time, allowing the gentle leaves of the tree they sit beside to sway down in their entropic waltz. I can't play, Maran mutters. I forgot how. They stare painfully into the eyes of the empty that sits before them. The figure slowly leans over the edge of the piano and gently clasps Maran's hands together. They pull them into their lap and unfurl Maran's tattered hands. The figure slowly turns them over, exposing the grotesque mouths that lay frowning upon each of their palms, their gray skin flaking away around the lips of each, indicating extreme use of their gift. Do you wish to have never had this gift, the mouths of many? The empty asks as they trace the figure of one of the mouths. It weakly reacts to the slight pressure and slowly closes. I regret this gift, but I do not regret what it has given me, Maran replies sapless. They've given me so much. How can I regret all that I've taken? Not what you have taken, but what was taken from you. Do you loathe those that led you here? I don't. The deeds of the damned strayed me from the path of righteousness. Was it wrong of me to have carved my way when the world wished otherwise? Maran begins to look at the figure with more vigor, as if needing to prove that they were always okay. I've found my peace, and I lent my body to those who would do it good. I am not wrong to correct those that speak against the truth. Nor am I claiming it so. I just wish to hear your truth. The empty lets go of Maran's hands, to which they slowly slide back down to the frail keys. Your brother, Demir, was he worth this? Without hesitation, Maran replies, Of course. I pledged to him, my lord, in the world that I would be the vessel of ultimate truth, to be the clay that sculpts his reality. The empty and Maran stared at each other for quite a while. The breeze, maintaining its soft cadence, carries a leaf down to the piano. The leaf dances atop the key, giving way to the brief and soaked sound of a note being played. "Go on, Maran. The world wishes to hear you," the figure says, slowly growing a soft smile. Maran watches the leaves drift away upon the rafters of wind, carried to the high heavens that they are barred from. They heave a heavy sigh and press firmly on the tired keys. The piano gasps for air in between notes played, reaching to the sky to bring forth its breath. Maran plays carefully, ensuring that they do not miss a single note. The pair sit for a while, allowing the falling leaves to blanket them in somber solitude. "Just as I remember, Maran," the figure says as they gaze about into the scaffolding of the tree. "You've quite the way with music. I believe this to be your truth." Maran continues to play delicately, fixing their gaze at the notes they play. As they play, they recount the moments of their life. They recall their meeting of the masked tyrant, their gift of the mouths of many, and their meeting of their family. They sigh as they remember the sly grin of their brother and the gentle gaze of their sister. They play in careful cadence, as if to be talking to them both. They imagine their life together. Demir sketching the summer evening storm yet to roll in. Eileen finally being able to stand firm and talk without worry of failure, slowly slicing vegetables at the dining room table. Maran watches as the reality builds within them and they recede into their own happy life, the life they so desperately want for them and their siblings, the one they had promised them, built upon the unwavering truth of the world. They continue to play, losing themselves on the wispy melodies that stroll with the leaves. The soft landing upon trampled grass quietly cuts through the melodic order Maran plays. The pitter-patter of footsteps walks away from the piano, to which Maran calls out while still fixated upon the keys. "Shiren, Maran looks up and is met with the smell of rotted flesh and charred wood. The tumbling tile of collapsing structures and the sharp squeal of steel scraping the stone below bombarded their senses. They find their arms and hands barring their head from immediate impact as they stumble backwards towards the mirrored wall erected by Demir. They stare into a gaze of hatred and determination. The mixture of adrenaline and fear within Maran slowly faded, giving way to tranquil waves of apathy. They take a deep breath in, allowing the scarf around their neck to unfurl, exposing their pasty gray skin to the air and the wound of the many to be singed by the smoke. As they stare into the eyes of this man who has sought his own truth, they feel remorse. Maran replied to the man's wrathful gaze with one of fatigue. They could only think of how Demir and Eileen may live on alone. They thought of how they were the clay that couldn't hold the structure of their younger siblings, and they thought of the falling leaves that they would rest under, together, as the ground came to cradle their head.